Well, I guess we can let Bob chime in when he gets here.
It looks like he's having some difficulty. He said he's on the call, but doesn't see anyone. So I'm not sure what call he's on. But I resent the link, so hopefully he'll get
Okay.
that shortly.
All right. Sounds good. Well, so for today, we don't have a huge long agenda, but we have some things that we actually really have to get done. And the main thing is that we need to start working on this report or whatever it is we're going to design for like whatever output we're going to create for the commission. And that was the reason behind the poll is I need to figure out who wants to work on which part of this report. So I'm going to share my screen. I think I can do that, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
you should be able to.
All right, so you should see this little slide here. This is these were the topics on the poll, and then these are the people that chose it as their first. So the top lines are the people that chose it like as their first, and then the people down at the bottom are people who chose it as their um, second topic. So what I was thinking is that these would be the committee for each of these three general areas. And we would start working on what that output looks like. Is that good? Everybody just fine with that? You good,
That
Rachel?
works.
That work? Okay.
No, I'm not
Um,
sure I understand how you scored these things or what it means. I mean, like under the first column, I see four names.
so I'll show you what turned out. So this is the actual responses. So Bob, you responded that this was your first option and this was your second option.
Uh-huh.
So I just put so your campaign finance into the state. So you're here. That's your first choice. And then this was your second choice, right? No, sorry, this is your second choice. Did I get that right? Yeah. You were blue and yellow. So you're blue and yellow there. So I just put people in their first and second. I put everybody in two committees because that seemed like a good way to distribute the work. And then we'll need somebody from each of these groups to serve as like the liaison or chair to help get this stuff written and get something developed. And I didn't put myself in there yet because only I'm waiting to see where there's holes and then I'll plug myself in wherever is needed. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. So if we keep these, and I mean, let me know if you want to shift, as I tell my students, shift now or forever hold your peace, so. Okay, the big question here is what kind of report or artifact do you want to reproduce based on that topic? And so we had talked a lot the last time we met about producing some type of infographic rather than a like a report. So that's fine. We can do that. It's just we need somebody to take the lead on creating that infographic or whatever we want to do. So let's take this first topic on state campaign finance reporting disclosure requirements. How does it work? How do the disclosure requirements works? And are there enough resources for it to work well? So I think one of the big questions here was like, how do people know about the disclosure requirements? How do they, how do they disclose? Like, how do they go through the process of actually saying, I got this much money from X person? What does that look like? And then how does the public know where to go get that information? So where do I find the money? Here's the website. This is where you can go look it up. So it's kind of, it would be a report or infographic, however we want to do it, on what that process looks like, both from a candidate standpoint, but also from the general public standpoint. Like, We want candidates to know, but we also want, and probably more importantly, we want the general public to know. This is where I can look up how much money a candidate has gotten. Questions, input, what do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the first one, or the state campaign finance first column there, it seems to me like that's probably more narrative than an actual infographic, as opposed to column C there. Seems much more narrative. Or excuse me, column C would be much more of an infographic, given.
Okay. I mean, I'm open. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, no, C. I think you're in D. I think C is an
Oh, sorry.
infographic. Yeah,
Mhm.
and then I mean, D seems more narrative too, but that's just my perspective.
Okay, anybody else?
Some of these, I'm speaking as a former candidate. It's really a campaign treasurer who usually knows the answer to a number of these questions, not the candidate themselves. Do we have anybody like that on this committee?
I don't think so. Rachel, I don't think we have any treasurers on here, right? Well, I think Susan was her own treasurer one time.
Yeah. Let me see.
So then, just to complicate things further, the laws change every election. So
Right.
Yeah. I don't believe there is anyone else.
Yeah, and I think a key too here is whenever we can point them back to a resource that the state board has that's readily available, I think it's key too, right? They publish the campaign finance manual, every cycle, or make updates to it most every cycle, I believe. So I think to point them to a central source of information is key too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think the whole point here is we want the public to know the basics. I mean, if they see this as an educational exercise, like let's teach the public, here's the basics of how this works, but here's where you actually can go find out the nitty gritty. Here's the information, the data, if you want to look at it, if you want to find out more. And I believe the state has some of these, wouldn't say infographics, but they do have a ton of resources on this. So that narrative might just be saying, this is how it works. And here's the link to the state website. It could be something that simple.
And I would think we would also need to combine not only our state board, but also FEC requirements as well for federal. So having both of those in one place, and I don't know, I could kind of see how there could be some combination of narrative and infographic with again, just trying to find a way to present this information for compliance and disclosure in a more palatable way. Again, combining those two sources, because they do, they're happy to defer to each other, but they don't necessarily contain the same information regularly.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that would be kind of nice, and it would make it consistent across the report to have a little bit of narrative and some infographic, maybe a little bit of both. Yeah.
Sure.
And I know we've had conversations too about whether or not we're touching anything federal. Are we getting into that, or is this something we just want to allude to, that federal requirements are different and the prohibitions on certain contributions and contribution limits are different? How far do we want to get into the federal stuff too? Because I know there was a fair amount of conversation, maybe not on this committee, but another, about we really want to keep it state focused.
Okay, Bob has his hand up, so I'm assuming he's going to answer that question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, I can get in the meeting on the phone, but I've tried 2 different computers trying to get in on my computer and I can't get it to work. So anyway, I just wanted to, it's like, hello, I'm here. So, so that's all I had. I just wanted to make
Okay.
sure, you could hear me and arguably see me.
Yep, both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so back to the federal versus North Carolina question. So it's my experience with the general public, and by the general public, it's usually students who are part of the general public. They don't necessarily differentiate between federal and state candidates. They just see candidates. They don't see a person running for the U.S. Senate from North Carolina as being a federal candidate. They honestly don't know the difference. So I think it would be helpful to at least put a little bit of something in there to say, okay, if you're running for the U.S. House, you're both a North Carolina candidate, but you're also a federal candidate. And so you have to comply with these rules. So, I mean, even that bit of education is super helpful.
Yeah, obviously avoid anything that would be presidential level or anything to that scale,
Yeah,
but something that like the
yeah.
congressional race, which are such a focal point, this, or at least we're in the primary, probably less so in the general, in North Carolina, would be something that I think would be helpful as far as just the general public education process or effort that we're trying to make through this committee.
Okay.
So I don't even, if you don't want to go to Senate, I'm okay with that, but I think we need to have at least a congressional level, because those fields are so large and there's so much involvement in a lot of those races. But once we get into the 90, 100 million range that you get with US Senate, that it gets a little less accessible. I can totally understand that.
Absolutely. Okay. So does anybody have any objection to doing it like as both a narrative and infographic kind of thing, like a little bit of both?
Yeah, I need a graphic.
So same thing for all of them. Okay. And Rachel, do you know how long this is supposed to be?
From my understanding, like it's kind of up in the air of, Jennifer's mentioned a few times, like some bullet points are fine. This is just kind of like the initial findings, and then we're gonna kind of elaborate and go from there on them.
Okay, so maybe like a page for each of them. I mean,
I
just
think that's a great goal to have.
Yeah.
If it isn't a page, I think that we still have, as long as we have something to work with.
Okay. So I think, yeah, I would say one page each.
Yeah. The longer, the less likely people are to read it. So
Exactly. So one page for each, and then we'll expand on it later. So then, anything else I'm missing that y'all can think about?
and maybe this is woven into narrative, but just thinking through maybe where does North Carolina rank as far as, or not necessarily rank, but compare to other states as far as, would that be helpful information for people as far as the amount of compliance work that we do in North Carolina, or is that just superfluous information that they don't really need and will take a good amount of time to research on our part?
So actually the MIT Election Lab has a tremendous amount of information about like, well, I guess it's more like voter stuff. I have to take a look at it again to see how much candidate compliance it has, but it does
Right.
have like a lot of our like disclosure requirements and how it compares states.
Right.
So we could look at that and see how much of that would be really useful.
And maybe, and if North Carolina is one of the strictest states, and that's something that we include, and if we're trying to build confidence in elections, that's something that clearly we're paying attention to or trying to pay attention to more so than maybe other states.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'll be the first to admit that the word infographic is like a really scary word for me. I'm not really sure what that looks like, and I'm not artistic at all. I have a science brain and it's words and science. What are our thoughts on this infographic thing?
If I'm sure all of your students have Canva and
Yes.
can basically do this in their sleep as far as infographics go. That's what I work with a lot when I'm trying to put together infographics or, any kind of slides or one pagers and things like that. So
Okay.
there are plenty of options out there. We can work with it. I don't have a monopoly on graphic design, but I'm happy to help with that whenever I can.
Okay. Yeah. I'm terrible at it. I'll be honest. It just doesn't work.
Join the club. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to do.
No, absolutely not. So, okay, cool. Well, we'll shoot for a page each. And I do have some resources on some of these topics. They're academic papers. And so I'm going to get them. I swear I've been meaning to get them to Rachel for about 2 weeks and just haven't gotten around to it. So some of them are pretty good and interesting. That can help just maybe flush some stuff out a little bit. But they are academic papers. Keep that in mind. So,
I was going to say too, CSG, Council of State Governments, and the Conference of State Legislatures also has pretty good comparative resources, especially around campaign finance. And to Brad's point, I think we could easily pull 2 or 3 states, especially in the Southeast, and compare some of the requirements. In fact, I think North Carolina is a little more stringent on a number of things around campaign finance and disclosure and who can give, et cetera.
So, I have the whole, it's kind of outdated at this point, but I did a whole thing about how complex the statutes were in each state. So I compared the actual language of them, but I don't think that's really what we're getting at. But we can compare. And so it'll, they're a little funky, but we'll get there. So, okay. All right. And so then the next meeting, which we set up for April 3rd, I think that's probably not going to be a workable date, but we'll see. We need to solicit public input on this one pager. So we need to be able to get it out to public and somehow solicit input for them. Rachel, do you know what other committees are doing for this, or have they gotten that far?
So I would say that they've not really gotten that far. And I wish that I had more advice to offer. We were hoping that the form on the website would take off a little bit more. And we are potentially thinking about trying to get some social media presence out there through the Carter Center. I don't know if it would be an option to have like your students potentially try to like disseminate that and get public feedback as well.
Absolutely. I think the students would, I actually think the university would help. Plus, I mean, if I share it on my social media, I mean, it's not like a huge audience, but it's going to get out there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll do a mailing to IOPL's list as well.
Yeah, I would think that
list.
if all of us can share it out, then if you can send us something to share, then we can share it out. Yeah. So you want to, are you talking about just sharing your form or sharing out whatever we create?
I mean, we could do both. The forum, we've tried to really get some traction just with our own network, and having like the committee members send it out to their network as well. I can definitely send you the link, but I think overall, just like the infographic and information that we're able to produce, like having that be disseminated out.
Okay. Okay. So then, let's look at dates. So today's 13th. That's 3 weeks is our next meeting. Hold on a second. There's something in the is there something in the chat?
It's just a link to a external resource for.
Oh, NCSL. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so that's 3 weeks. Do you committee members think you can get this, get your one pager done in 3 weeks?
Quick question, if you can hear me.
Sure.
Yeah. Do we know whether the state board or an outside group like what's the one in DC, Open Secrets, if are there any flow charts out there that we could work off of?
I think I've seen some, I just need to take the time to actually look it up, for Open Secrets. And, the other ones Follow the Money, to see if they've got some, but I think Follow the Money is actually merging together with Open Secrets, which is awesome. But yeah, let's look and see what we can find. And maybe we can have it in our folder, we can share some links or some information that we find. That would be really helpful to help each other out.
Yeah, but we don't, do we know whether Lindsay and the state board has anything?
Oh, we can just ask. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I tell you what, let me check with Lindsay. Y'all are doing a bunch of stuff, so
Okay.
I need to call her anyway. So, okay.
So what do you think about the 3 weeks?
I think that's doable. I guess we just need to connect offline with each of these committees.
Yeah.
Can you circulate these committees out?
Yes.
Let me check. Is Blake sort of emerging as the scribe? I'm chair of another committee that's driving me, keeping me busy, and my bandwidth is rather limited, and I don't think I could promise or keep a promise to cough up something in 3 weeks.
So Bob, do you think that you could, however, like look at something and say, hey, this is great, or like just review it maybe?
Yeah, that's not a problem. It's just that,
Okay.
compiling it and putting it, editing it, that'll take a little bit of work. And
Okay.
I'm happy to help as best I can, but I'm probably going to have to pull that sled on a different committee, and I just don't want to overpromise.
I gotcha. Okay. So, Blake, can I make you point person on the yellow committee?
That's fine. Yep.
And Brad, how about you for the blue one?
Sure.
Okay. And then, I'll take this one. And we'll see if we can just drive it, and get maybe, page or so done, maybe like 2 weeks, and then we can circulate it amongst ourselves and then give time for a little bit of feedback and have it ready on the 3rd. And then we will just need to figure out by the 3rd, how we're going to put that out to the public. And that might just be another shared input, like pushing it out to social media. But I can't see maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't know that having a public meeting and that people are going to show up.
Yeah, we might want to submit it to various good government groups like the League of Women Voters, the various and sundry entities.
Bob, do you think you could come up with a list of those groups?
Yeah, because I'm sort of working on a list in regard to another matter. So yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
Okay, cool. So I think that would work if we just push it out to these different groups and maybe push it out to our social media platforms to say, what do you think? What else would you like to know? That kind of stuff. And then come back after that should be mid-April, right? Maybe give it a week or two, edit it some more, finish it off. Sounds like a super plan that probably won't work, but you gotta have a plan for it to not work, right?
That's
So,
it. There you go.
yeah. So we'll just come up with the plan and see how it goes. What do y'all think?
I'm aligned.
We good? Okay.
Hard to argue with that logic.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that's the big thing. So by April 3rd, we'll have definitely finished a graphic. And so Brad, Blake and I, maybe we can just offline or somehow just coordinate our different groups and see who we can get together to come up with the infographic kind of thing. And then meet back on the 3rd to compare and look over the drafts and like make any changes or get feedback and then start the public campaign. Good.
Okay.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to talk about today is, can you see this? It's the email that came out for the Network for
Mhm.
Fair, Secure Elections. Okay. So I just want to encourage everybody to go to these things. I saw on here this Catawba College one on the 27th. That looks really fascinating. So I think it would be good for any of us to participate in those, to learn more about them. You know, the more we can participate and share that information out to others, I would encourage you just to share them to anybody you know, there's an opportunity to learn more about elections. Good. Is anybody else did I miss anything? Anything we need to talk about, Rachel, that I'm forgetting?
I will add, so in the next coming days, we're going to be sending out a email to the entire commission, but Karen Brinson Bell is scheduled to present to the entire committee on Wednesday, March 27th at 11:30 a.m. We will be sending out an email to confirm all of that. But in the meantime, we're going to be doing like a Q&A portion, and we're sending her the questions in advance. So if you guys have any questions that you would want her to answer, if you could just kind of brainstorm those, feel free to send them my way. But once the email goes out, there'll be a little portion in that email of, if you have any questions, please submit them to us. So just wanted to kind of let you all know in advance about that opportunity.
Okay. That's cool. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that's good. So we all have our marching orders. Good
Yeah.
work.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
You're great at writing on this.
We are moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, so I'll see everybody on the 3rd, and Brad, well, I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good. See you in the morning.
Brad and Blake will be chatting.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Take
Thank
care, everybody.
you. Have a
See
good
y'all.
one.
Bye.